Episode 8 of Fist of the North Star, 1 point. The keyword for this episode is going to be regret. In this episode, Kenshiro disposes of the Colonel. What I want to talk about here is what he says, the Colonel, when he's already dead, right? When Kenshiro does him the Omae wa mou shindeiru, and right when he's going to die, the last things he says are, well, first he says, he's shocked basically. You have this much power, or that power that caused the end of him. You have all of this power. With this much power, you can do whatever you want. And then he says, you can become a god. Now, we talked about God before, and we said that for the evil, divinity, and they claim to be gods, and, well, this guy was basically the peak of the god army. Divinity is to be understood as power, because the powerful in this epic just benefits from his power and dominates the weak. Now, this is their conception of God. It's the powerful who does whatever they want. So why don't you do that? Why don't you... So Colonel telling Kenshiro, why don't you just become a god? You can do whatever you want. And then he says, you will regret this. You'll regret it. Because Kenshiro, instead of doing whatever he wants, because he has, let's say, infinite power like some god, he follows some rules. He protects the code of the Hokuto Shinken. More precisely here, he fights for justice, for the weak. So we kind of talked about this. There are two possible perceptions of God. There's the fake God, as Kenshiro calls it, which is this God that is made up by evil people because it would benefit them. And then there's the real God, and Kenshiro doesn't claim to be God. The Colonel tells him, why don't you become God? But Kenshiro is more subtly equated with God already, and there are several indications to this in the anime, and we talked about this before as well. So it's kind of like he doesn't have to become it, he is it already. But he is not the superficial kind of God that the evil people claim to be, and that they would recognize a god, because that is only one aspect of divinity, which is power, but another aspect of it is goodness and justice. And of course the evil people can't understand this because they can't see further than what's obvious, let's say. But Kenshiro impersonates this kind of real god for the good, as we said before, and a demon for the criminals. And the reason he won't regret it is because he has meaning, is because he has belief, because he knows what he's doing. Now, arguably anyone in his place would have regretted, when we know how grieved he will be more and more in the rest of the anime. And this is why these words, these last words coming from the Colonel, are important to remember, because he kind of predicted, because of what he experienced, what he witnessed against him, what was going to happen to Kenshiro for the rest of the anime. So when we rewatch the anime, this is something very interesting to see. But Kenshiro doesn't regret because of the meaning he has, because of his knowledge of his responsibility and his belief in that as the successor of the Hokuto Shinken. So the morality here is kinda, if you believe, if you have belief, if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're fighting for, then no pain, no challenge could make you regret, and you would go on walking on your path.